Hi, I'm Scott. In this video, I'll show you the detailed steps you need to perform in order to download, build, install, and play the Mr. Burns 801 Classic Vertical Arcade image on your Raspberry Pi. This image has 868 classic arcade games based on the vertical monitor. This video is part of my series of videos related to the RetroPie, a retro gaming system that runs on the Raspberry Pi hardware. The software used by this image is MAME, RetroPie, Emulation Station, and a track mode. MAME stands for Multiple Arcade Machine Emulation. Emulation Station is the default user interface associated with RetroPie. A track mode is a more robust graphical user interface. Let's get started.
Okay, I'm just going to bring up Amazon Prime and we're going to go over the Raspberry Pi that you need for this project. You could purchase a Raspberry Pi 3B or a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. I would recommend the 3B Plus just so you can use it for this project or other projects. There's a thing called the starter kit. If you've never purchased a Raspberry Pi, then get the starter kit. For this project, I'm going to get the 32 gigabyte version. So the starter kit will come with the Raspberry Pi, a power supply. It'll come with some heat sinks for the chips on the Raspberry Pi. It'll come with a case for the Raspberry Pi, an on-off switch for the Raspberry Pi, and it comes with a microSD card, 32 gigabytes, and most importantly, it comes with this micro USB card reader that plugs into your USB port on your PC, and that's how you're going to get the software from your PC onto your micro SD card that will then slip into the Raspberry Pi. So once again, if you don't have a Raspberry Pi, I would recommend the starter kit, and you can get that for 85 bucks. I already have some Raspberry Pis, so for this project I purchased, let's see which one, the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. I purchased this one here for $65, and it came with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, the on-off switch. It came with the heat sinks, the power supply, and a case. I'll have links to this in the comments of this video, so you can be a link directly to this Raspberry Pi, the starter kit, and to the Raspberry Pi that I paid for with the clear case. Alright, I'm going to just show you some of the software you'll need for this project, and it's all free. You can download it off the internet. What I did is when I downloaded it and installed it on my laptop, I just created a folder on my desktop and created shortcuts to the different software pieces so that they will all be together for my Raspberry Pi project. It just makes it easier to get to them. So the first thing you're going to need is, of course, you'll need an internet browser. You can use Google if you want. It doesn't really matter. Then you want to get something called WinRAR, WinRAR, and this is going to let you get some of the images are compressed using this format, and you can download them and uncompress them using this. And so for the Mr. Burns image, this is what we're going to use. You'll need something called the Win32 Disk Imager, and you can get this off the Raspberry Pi site. And this will let you copy an image from your hard drive on your laptop or PC over to the micro SD card, and that image will then be readable by the operating systems on the Raspberry Pi. So the next thing you're going to need is a piece of software called the SD card formatter, and this will let you format your SD card up to 32 gigabytes. Now you could get an SD card in 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, or 32 gigabytes, and you'll use this SD card formatter. If you go higher to like a 64 gigabyte or 128 gigabyte, you're going to need to format in the FAT32. For the projects I'm using for these videos, there'll be a 32 gigabyte microSD card, you'll use this SD card formatter. Okay, then the next piece of software you'll need is something called the Notepad++. Now your PC may come with Notepad, but get Notepad++. Once again, it's free. Download it. If you're going to edit any files that are on a Linux-based operating system, the Linux text files, which Raspberry Pi is basically Linux-based operating systems run on it. If you have to edit any of the configuration files, you'll want to use Notepad++. So go ahead and download that while you're at it. And we'll use that on future videos. The next thing you'll want to get is a uTorrent. Even though it has that fancy symbol, you call it a uTorrent. This is another way some compressed files live out on the web that we'll need to go get for these images. So go ahead and download that now while you're downloading all these other software, and we'll refer to it in a different project. And so while you're at it, another piece of software you're going to download is WinSCP. Now WinSCP is a way for you using a Windows interface to transfer files from your laptop over to your Raspberry Pi, or from your Raspberry Pi over to your laptop. And it's a Windows interface. It's pretty slick. It's just like using File Manager. And one more way, and so download that software too. And one more other piece of software is to download is a PuTTY, P-U-T-T-Y. And this will let you connect your laptop or PC to your Raspberry Pi. And this will let you actually control your Raspberry Pi from your laptop, so you'll have remote control. You can shut your Raspberry Pi down. You can control your Raspberry Pi no matter where it is. If it's on your network, you can control it from your desktop or your laptop. So go ahead and get this piece of software. And I think if you get all this software, you'll have everything you need for this video and most of my future videos on this Raspberry Pi projects. Now if you notice here, here's the uTorrent shortcut, a zip file shortcut that I'll use some other stuff. Here's my Notepad++, here's the PuTTY shortcut, here's the Win32 Disk Manager shortcut, here's my WinRAR shortcut, probably butchering that, but anyway, and there's the shortcut to the WinSCP. So all my shortcuts are in one folder. I call it Raspberry Pi, and that folder lives on my desktop. That way everything's organized together. Okay, it's time for us to now go get our image. And we'll start with what's the definition of image. An image is a collection of software that goes on the microSD card, which the Raspberry Pi can run. So in our image, we're going to have RetroPie on there, which will also be our operating system. It will have MAME, multiple arcade machine emulator on there. It'll have the game ROMs on there, which is a big deal. It'll have all the configurations preset, which is wonderful. It'll have the artwork and sound for each of the different arcade games, which is fantastic. This saves you a tremendous amount of work to go get that information. And we'll have the menu, the front-end user systems, emulation station, and a track mode. And they'll all be ready to go. So once you get this image and you put it on the microSD card, you plug it in your Raspberry Pi, you're ready to go. So where do we find these images at? Well, in 2019, I started to find my images on a site called Arcade Punks. So remember, all of these links, internet links, I'll have on the description of this video. So everything will be there for you to just copy and paste into your web browser. So this is the main page of Arcade Punks, and it's got all kinds of images. We're just interested in the Raspberry Pi images. So when you go to that, let's see, actually we want to go to the list of Raspberry Pi images are here, and most of them are in alphabetical order. So we're just going to scroll down to, I know it's an 8 gigabyte. It's really, they ordered it by size for the most part. So let's see, I went too far. And, oops, easy does it. Right here, 8 gigabyte, 801 vertical classic RetroPie, Mr. Burns. So this is a hyperlink. If we click, we'll click on that in a second. And then this tells you which type it is. It's a mega file, which notice there are torrents. And torrents is a different way to download, and we'll do that for a different image on a later video. And then there's a hyperlink to a read info. So if you go to the read info, and I highly recommend that you do that for each image that you want to download, it will give you some background information. Usually there's a video associated with each one, and there's a description of the image, and there's some question and answers that usually goes on. So go look at the read info, and that'll tell you if it's really the one you want to get. So we do want to get this Mr. Burns, so I'll click on it, the hyperlinks, and it'll take me into something called Mega Drive. And so here's the 4 files. Notice how they're compressed, RAR compressed. Remember we downloaded the Win RAR software earlier in the video so that we can uncompress these. So you're going to just download each one individually. So you'll select one and you'll right click, and you'll say download file, standard download. Don't do a zip file because they're already compressed. They're already in a compressed format. So you just download one at a time. Now when you do that, you get this message, and the message says, hey, you cannot use Internet Explorer. It's not set up. It's insufficient buffer to do this. So you can install their desktop or use Google Chrome. Well, I'm going to use Google Chrome. So I just copy this link into a Google Chrome session, and this pops up. So now I can right click, do a download, and a standard download. And I'll do this for each one of those, and this will take about 10 minutes. I'll come back and we'll pick it up after I've downloaded these to my desktop. Okay, I'm back. It took about 15 minutes to download these 4 files, and when it downloaded them, it placed them in the downloads folder. So here they are. There's the 900K, the 900K, 900K, and the 7 something, and they're in the WinRAR format, and there's part 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I did next is, just so you all saw this, I copied them from here to a folder. I created a folder network of Arcade Punks images because I'm going to do more than just the Mr. Burns. So I created a Mr. Burns folder underneath my Arcade Punks images, which is underneath my Raspberry Pi folder, and I placed those 4 files there. Now really I would have just dragged and dropped them, moved them, but I want to show you that they did come down in the downloads, and then I copy them into another folder. And at that point, we're about ready to create the image. Now we're going to take our 4 files that we downloaded, part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to create our image. And the way we do that is we're going to take the WinRAR software. So I go over to my Raspberry Pi folder where I have all of my software, and I'm going to start WinRAR. And this comes back up. So at this point, that's in my downloads. So I want to go navigate to where it's stored at. Okay, so here I've navigated to my Mr. Burns folder, and there's my 4 WinRAR files. So I'm going to highlight those. Now, in prep for this, I created another subfolder called Video Test, and this is blank. It's empty. There's nothing in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these 4 files, and then when I create my image, I'm going to stick it in Video Test. So I just right click, extract to a specific folder, and I'm going to navigate down to that test folder. Let's see if I can do this. Raspberry Pi, Arcade Punks, Mr. Burns, Video Test folder. Okay, and there it goes. And this takes about a minute. So I'm going to quit talking here, and we're just going to fast forward the video. Notice it's on part 1 right here of the wire file, and you'll see it go to 2, 3, and 4. Okay, I'm back, and that took about 1 minute per file. So now if I jump over here to my video test, there it is. There's my image, 801 Vertical Classics img.img image. And there it is. There's the 8 gigabytes. That's what the image size is. So that's fantastic. That's what we're looking for there. So I come over here. I'm going to, I'm in my browser, I mean my Explorer, and there it is. There's my image file. Type disk image. There it is, 8 gigabytes. So everything looks good. All right, we're now ready to move on. We're going to copy this down to the microSD card. Moving right along. We're sitting here in our Mr. Burns video test folder, and there's our image, and it's 8K, and it's a disk image. So now we need to write this to our microSD card, and I've put the microSD card into the USB reader. Micro SD card reader. It's a thumb drive or USB drive, and I'm putting it into my USB port on my laptop right now, and it just got recognized. First thing we want to do, so it's drive letter E, is it's empty. I want to go down and verify it's empty. Now I'm going to right click, check the properties, make sure the size, yep, it's 32 gigabytes. So there's no need to format this one. Sometimes you'll have to format them. Sometimes they'll come pre-formatted and they'll only have 1 gig available, and you have to reformat them into a FAT32. So, but this this micro USB card looks good. So we are ready to begin. So we're going to go back to our Raspberry Pi folder over here where we downloaded all that software at the beginning of the video, and we're going to go to Win32 Disk Imager. And yes, I'm going to allow it to make changes. Now this is very tricky, not hard, just tricky. Here's the device we're going to go to. It's the E drive right here. Remember, we just checked it for 32 gig. That's where the output's going. We got to pick our image file. So I'm going in here, and I'm going to go to my D drive, home, Raspberry Pi, Arcade Punks, images, Mr. Burns, and there's our video test folder, and there's our image right there. 8 gigabyte disk image. I click open, and it places it here. Here's our image file, and we're going to write it to the D drive, which is correct. Make sure you double check that. If you write that to your C drive or your D drive, you will reformat all that. You'll lose everything. So make sure that's your USB drive. Okay, and we're just going to go right. Here we go. Writing to the physical device can corrupt the device. Target E. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, we are good with this one. Okay, this should take roughly 10 minutes. So I'm going to stop the video here, and then I'll pick it up once we finish off after it's done writing it to the micro USB drive. We're back. It finished. It said write successful. So I'm just going to click OK, and we're done. I'm going to exit. And let's see, these are our tools. We're done with those. I'll come over here. Let's go down to E overlays. There it is. This is our image. Oh yeah, this looks good. This is it. We're done. All right. So the next piece is I'll remove the micro USB item out of the USB port. I'll remove my micro SD card, and we'll put it into the Raspberry Pi and see what happens.
Here's our little micro SD card, 32 gigs. That's the white and gray is the front, and the back is where you got your contacts. This is the little adapter, the USB adapter that comes with the Raspberry Pi starter kit, with the writings at the top or the front. Where the writing isn't missing, that's the back or the bottom. So you just take your micro SD card with the color side up, going into the bottom of the USB adapter. You just push it in. Say it's on the bottom of the USB adapter, color side up. You install it in the USB drive, and the system automatically recognizes it. So I can see it. There's my E, my USB drive. It's bootable, which is what we want because it's got to go on the Raspberry Pi and boot up. So then when you're done, if you wrote your image to it, you just unplug your USB drive adapter, and with your little thumbnail, it's got a little clip for your thumbnail to pull it out. You pull out the microSD card and it's ready to go into your Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi starter kit comes with this USB adapter for the microSD cards, but a lot of the microSD cards come with this bigger adapter. Okay, and the way this bigger adapter works is there's the writing on the front side, top side, writing on the top of your microSD card. That just slips in. This time you got writing and writing. You slip it in, and some laptops contain a slot where there's a push in. This laptop does, so I can use this. Just push it in, and it recognizes it, and I can use that the same as I do my USB adapter. So then when I'm done, I just push back on it, and it releases and comes out. And then with my thumbnail, I can pull it up and it comes out of this adapter. So it's a different kind of adapter, but these adapters come with most of these micro SD cards. So if your laptop or your computer supports that, that's a good deal. Then you really don't have to mess with this USB adapter. All right, moving along, we got the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus into its fancy little clear plastic case. At this point, we're going to put the micro SD card into it. So we got the gray and the white side, and we're going to turn this upside down and the gray and the white side in that way. And it'll slide in there just like that. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to hook up the peripherals. So the first thing we're going to hook up is the keyboard. So I'm just going to, you can use a wired keyboard. I'm going to use a wireless keyboard. So that just goes, it's got 4 USB ports, and we're just going to push it into one of them. At this point, the configuration we're going to do, I'm not going to insert a mouse. Usually I insert a mouse, but I know for this configuration, we're not going to use it. Next, I have my player controller. In this case, I'm just going to use a generic cheapo PlayStation controller. You can get these on the internet. I got a whole package of a variety of them. So I like using this to test around with my games. So I just take that USB connector and I put it in there. Next, we're going to hook up the sound. I just bought this cheap $10 sound bar off Amazon Prime. Nice thing about this sound bar is it goes to the output, the audio-visual jack on the Raspberry Pi. That's the screen connector, and the power supply comes from a USB port. So that's nice. That's one less cable I have to worry about. So I just plug that in, and I plug that into a USB port. Okay, that's done. Then the last 2 pieces we have to do is I have to connect the monitor, which this does HDMI output right there. Now I have a VGA monitor, but I have a VGA to HDMI connector to it. And then the last piece we'll do is the power supply. And the power supply, this is where this is the end of the power supply, and this is that new on-off switch. This is nice. So right now I have no power going to this end, which goes into the Pi. And if I press this button, now I have power going to the Pi. If I press it again, power's off the Pi. Power going to the Pi, no power going to the Pi. That's nice because usually you got to unplug this and plug it back in. That's how you reboot your Pi. And that's a pain in the ass, that little bitty connector. So that goes into here. I make sure I got it red, no power to the Pi. That plugs in, my HDMI plugs in, and it's all set. So I'm going to turn the camera around to my test bed where I've got my monitor and all that set up, and we'll start this up and see what happens to the image. Doing a reset here. Here's my Pi. It's connected to my monitor. There's my control pad right here. Got the power. Here's a little switch. I'm just going to push. I've already got the microSD card in here for Mr. Burns' image. I'm going to press the button. Power's red. You can see the LEDs are flashing on the Pi. Sound bar just came on blue. And so what should happen the very first time, I've seen a cursor up here. This is it. Now, this is a vertical image. This is a horizontal monitor. Fortunately, I can turn this. But that's as far as it goes that way. This monitor turns this way. So everything's upside down. Okay? You're going to get this first. So what we have to do first time is we got to tell the gamepad. We got to hold a button for each, the buttons on here to match up with that. So we'll do that. This is called configuring your controller. We'll do that in this next section. All right, now we're going to start configuring the buttons. So it did detect my gamepad. So I'm just going to hold a button, and I'm holding the A button. It says US pad detected. So now we're going to do the D-pad. I'm going D-pad up, down, left, right, and clicking the start, select, A, B, X, Y, left shoulder, right shoulder. Now I don't have the rest of this stuff, so I'm just going to press something and hold it. And then for my hotkey, I'm going to use the select button. Okay, so now we're in the arcade. This is the menu for Emulation Station. So right there it tells you there's 868 games available. There's RetroPie. That's how I can go to the main menu, and it just keeps switching back and forth between RetroPie and arcade, because that's the only thing it's defined to this image. So let's go see if we can play a game. Here's the 800 and some odd games. Let's see. Once again, notice how it's set up vertical. So my monitor goes like this. So I've got to flip the monitor, and I'll show you that later on in the video. So, but I'll give it a slight turn. We gave it some credits, some coins down here. You can't see it because the monitor's not turned right. And then we're just going to start a game. So now we're going to go back and we're going to change this configuration to get this monitor to flip appropriately. Currently, what we're viewing right here is Emulation Station. I need to get out of Emulation Station to the prompt to change the configuration file that will let my games appear horizontally in 180 degrees. So instead of them flying down like this, the planes will be flying up like that. I go to menu, which is the start button, and I'm going to just quit. Once again, I'm in Emulation Station. I'm going to quit. That's the A button. I'm going to quit Emulation Station. It's the A button. Do you really want to quit? Yes. Okay, now I'm at the dollar prompt, and so I've got my wireless keyboard, and I'm going to enter a command sudo nano/boot/config.txt. And once again, this command will be in the video descriptions. I hit that. That's going to let me edit the text file that's associated with the configuration. So I just scroll down to the bottom. I'm going to rotate the monitor 180 degrees. I put the command display rotate equals 2. And 2 is 180 degrees. I do Control X, Y, and yes, I do want to overwrite the text. So now I have to reboot, so I do sudo reboot. Hit enter. And now the system's going to reboot itself. Now this will fix the gameplay, but the emulation station is still going to be kind of screwed up, but we're going to go to track mode here right when I get this to work. Okay, now things are much better. So I was able to reverse the image 180 degrees. The problem is emulation station is going to be running upside down, or left from bottom to top instead of left to right. So one of the things we want to do now is I'll just go play a game, one of those flight games, 1943, the Battle of Midway. And I'll give it some credits. I'll hit start. And here we go. Okay, so you get the gist of that. Now we're going to move on to a track mode user interface. All right, we're in emulation station, but we really want to go to a track mode. So right now we're in the arcade list. So I'm just going to hit my left button, and that's going to take me into the RetroPie list. And right there is a track mode, the very first one, right there. So I'm going to hit my A button to accept it, and it's going to boot us over into a track mode. Once again, everything's in the right direction. This is the intro MP4 that it plays every time it reboots. Okay, so this is a track mode. And this is a wheel, and we're just going through the wheel. I'm pressing the down button, and now I'm pressing the up button. And so this would be like the marquee. This gives you some preview of the gameplay. This is the marquee of the game. So we'll just scroll through. There's 800 and some odd games in here. Now that we're in a track mode, we also have to go configure the control pad like we did in emulation station. So to do that, you have to have your keyboard connected, and you hit the tab key on your keyboard, and it brings up the configuration menu. And we want to go up to controls, and you hit the enter key on your keyboard. So this kit's a little tricky. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't. And I would write these down. Matter of fact, I'll put those in this video and then also in the video notes. But because you'll need to know what the button means. But what is button 2? I can tell you from my notes that button 2 is the B button. So B for back. So it wasn't like that. It was the X button for me. So I had to hit the enter key to select that. Had to go remove the joy 0. Joy means it's just a button 2. I said remove that input. So I highlighted it blue, hit the enter to remove it. I scroll down, say add input. It says press input, and I press the B button on my control. And now it says joy button, button 2, and I can go back. And that's how I got button 2 up there. So joy button up, down, left, and right, those are correct. Select is joy button 0, and 0 button is A. I don't want that one, so I want to hit enter. I want to remove the left control, and I want to remove the joy button 0, and I want to add input, and I want to add the select button, which is button 8. Select, there we go, joy button 8. And then we just go back. And so these I won't do right off the bat, but I go in and do some of these, not all of them. Once again, I'll list them all I won't configure them all in this video, but I'll list everything in the note on the description of the video and within this video so that you can go do them yourself. Just write some notes down. And then once you get done doing all these, You just go back and you do back. And then you can go back again, and you're back into a track mode. Well, we've done a lot of work. We've got our image downloaded from Arcade Punks. We've created our image file. We put it on our microSD card, and we put it in our Raspberry Pi, and we booted up our Raspberry Pi. We configured our controllers in an emulation station. We configured our controllers in a track mode. Now we're finally able to go play some games. Now there's 868 games in here. That's a lot of games. The problem with 868 games is it can take a while to find a game that you want. But most likely it's out there, like Galaga. So we can put our quarter in to play Galaga by clicking the select button, and then press the start button to start a game. And then we just start playing. And that vertical screen, that looks fantastic. That's exactly how it was set up in the arcades. And then if we ever want to get out of Galaga or any other games, we just press select and start, and it'll take us out. So there's many other games out here too. So you could probably find something like, maybe we can find, see how it's taking so long for me to find a game? Frogger. Let's play some Frogger. So there's Frogger. So we hit select to enter a quarter, and then we do start. Or maybe we want to play something else like Pac-Man. All right, there's Pac-Man. Takes a while to get to it because there's 868 games, but we can play it. So now I'm going to hit the select button to add a quarter, hit the start button, and there's Pac-Man, just like in the arcades. Okay, and then the exit Pac-Man, I just hit select and start. Here's a tip for you. The sound that is in this preview and track mode can be loud. So the way you change it is you go into the track mode configure. You go into sound and change the movie volume from 100 down to a lower value. And that'll make that sound a lot lower. And that's just what it is. It's the sound for this movie that's really loud that you're making softer. And once you're done playing, the way you turn the game off, because there's no exit menu in here, so you hit B, goes into track mode. You scroll up to yes, select A, and it's going to take you to the prompt. So what I usually do is I kick in sudo power off, and that turns the game off. And then when you have that little switch, the power switch, you can just push it once to turn the red LED off, and now everything's saved. All right, that wraps up this video reviewing how to set up your Raspberry Pi Model 3B Plus to play the Mr. Burns 8GB image 801 classical vertical arcade games. Hopefully I exposed you to something new in this video. Be sure to keep watching my YouTube channel to catch my upcoming videos about retro game systems featuring the RetroPie software running on the Raspberry Pi. I think you'll find them very entertaining, interesting, and even educational. Future videos in this series will show you how to perform more detail and technical configuration settings within RetroPie, Emulation Station, and the Attract Mode software. I'll also show you how to set up an image with arcade games for horizontal monitors and TVs. Click on the red subscribe button below the play pause button for automatic updates when I add content to my YouTube channel. And don't forget, ring that bell. If you like this video, then click on the thumbs up. If you dislike this video, then click on the thumbs down. Please leave any feedback you have in the comment section below. And remember, you're never too young to learn or too old to learn. Alright, go have some fun playing those classic vertical arcade games.